Hi, everyone. My name is Ebony Otu. I work with the News Literacy Project. We are a national education nonprofit that exists to envision a future where news literacy is a part of the American education experience. And so I'm going to be presenting some research that we released last year in October 2024 that I'm really excited about. This is actually my first time presenting this research. We decided to conduct a survey to really kind of validate some theories and ideas that we had about teens' habits and attitudes concerning news literacy. So for this report, we conducted a survey to learn more about the attitudes, habits, and skills of teenagers and to assess the state of news literacy education in the US. And for this report, we engaged with SSRS, to survey 1,110 American teenagers between 13 and 18 to learn more about their habits. And with the results, our goal here is to inform educators and policymakers as they really weigh how to best integrate news literacy into schools and to kind of reimagine what a future could look like, taking some of this information into account and using it to help inform policy, to help journalists and researchers better understand how teens engage with news and other information in their daily lives. And our recommendations are calls to action designed to ensure that students have the knowledge and ability to participate in civic society as well-informed critical thinkers by the time they graduate high school. So this is really central to our mission as an organization and why we exist and do what we do. So I'm going to walk us through a couple of very high-level findings from the report. You can find the full report on our website at newslit.org if you're interested in reading the entirety of the report. But one key finding is that many teens are at least somewhat trusting of news media, but still perceive high levels of bias in news. And as you would imagine, this is really interesting because this informs not just teens' perception of the news, but also how they're consuming news. If we understand that they find that there's a lot of bias in their perception as it relates to news media. And so you can see these results here. There's a staggering number of teens that perceive intentional bias in news, which is a really key finding. And so we've been using this particular takeaway to inform our resources, how we approach PD, how we approach content creation to help create habits of mind that walk students through how to assess quality journalism, how to assess news media, and not just kind of what to trust and what not to trust, but really how to create habits and how to think critically about the information that they consume, not with the goal of changing their mind, but just with the goal of looking at a lens that's not cynicism, but think critically, not cynically, about the information that they're seeing on their timelines and on their news feeds. Another key finding that's really interesting to me is over 8 in 10 teens actively avoid news at times, but only 10% do so often. But the reason why this was really interesting is because what it shows us is that not only are teens oftentimes not intentionally engaging with news, but are in fact avoiding it. So that lets us know that information is coming at them, but it's coming from other sources, whether that be influencer sources or other forms of media. We recognize that the voices that are influencing teens, the voices that they're using to receive information, important information about the world around them, about their communities, about their daily lives, a lot of that information is not coming from news sources because in some cases, as we see here, they are actively avoiding the news. So this is a really interesting finding as well. And this is one that we did not predict. We did not predict that young people were actually avoiding a lot of news sources. What we were thinking is that they were just so many that they were kind of overwhelmed with the sheer vast information landscape that they were inheriting and all of the opportunities that teens have to engage with media. But instead, what we're finding is like, no, there's actually, in some instances, a avoidance of news. And here are a couple that we'll look at side by side. 55% of teens use AI chatbots. Only 5% report being daily users, which is not surprising. And then 33% of teens use AI image generators. So this is really interesting because as we're looking at these, we're kind of imagining what a future would look like where AI is being used increasingly more, not just in schools, but in our daily lives. I'm sure many of you can attest to using AI. This is really interesting to know that about half of the teen population that we surveyed are using AI like ChatGPT or other things. And then some, or even about a third, are even using it for image generators. And so that's letting us know that a lot of the content that they're probably sharing as well is AI content. And what's even more interesting about this, I think, is like I think what we're going to start seeing, some of the trends that folks are already noticing as it relates to AI in the future, is that teens will be even more adept in how to spot AI, hopefully how to use AI responsibly. But this puts really the onus on those companies to ensure that young people know how to use these tools, how to engage with these tools in a responsible manner, and when content is and images are AI, how to identify those when they come across them in their news feeds and on their timelines or wherever it is that they're consuming content. Half teens are skeptical of generative AI chatbots when it comes to producing accurate and fair information. And the question that we asked was, how much, if at all, do you trust generative AI chatbots to produce information that is accurate and fair? And this was pretty interesting. I think we'll continue to kind of keep an eye on how teens are engaging with AI and also teens' perception of AI, particularly as it relates to the classroom and how they're engaging with it for schoolwork and how they're using it to consume news and other information as they're engaging with these mediums. But it seemed a little bit all across the board for this one. But I think the takeaway here that we were noticing is that there's a lot of interest in using AI, but teens are in general just skeptical of media. They're skeptical of the information that they're consuming, skeptical of what they're seeing on their timelines, and that includes AI. There was one other slide I wanted to end on. It doesn't look like I added it to this presentation, but I'll just share it. This is probably the most staggering, is that 94% of teens that we surveyed said they accurately wanted good news media education in their curriculum. They admitted that that's not something that they have on a regular basis, and that's something that they're craving for. And so what was exciting about that is we've been using that knowledge that it tells us two things. One, it tells us that they're actually not receiving the tools that they want to receive to know how to responsibly navigate the information landscape. But we also learned that they want that. And we know there are a lot of educators who are working really hard to create the structure in their classrooms for that. But we know that we, as organizations, can be doing more. So we've been creating resources, tools to help educators reach these teens so that they can be news literate, so that they can graduate and have the appropriate habits of mind to be able to engage responsibly with AI, with image generators, with news media that they're consuming on their timelines, and how to be able to discern which information is which and how to engage with it appropriately. And ultimately, that would lead to them not only being critical thinkers, but also being able to participate in democracy. So that concludes some of the findings that I wanted to highlight for this group for today. Again, if you have more questions or want to engage more with the research, you can find the full report on our website. It's absolutely fascinating. And we also have some recommendations there as well, in case you're interested in not only how we're interpreting the data and analyzing the data, but also what the next steps are with the data. So I want to thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate your time and attention today.